It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. It's Friday, and Gary, good morning after the what did we call it? All over the place Thursday?
Yeah.
We might have a little more of that this morning. There was so much going on Thursday.
I mean, we've got whistleblowers. We've got.
I don't know, Gary. Are they whistleblowers? That back and forth, by the way,
was just bizarre.
It was bizarre, and I thought, okay, this is going to be their tactic, right? Well, you're not a whistleblower. That doesn't constitute. I'm sorry, but I mean, you can say whatever you want, but you're not a. It is bizarre.
Well, you know, I was talking to a friend yesterday, and I said, do you remember, and we've talked about it on the air before, and maybe I can find a clip later on, the Martin Short character, the lawyer on SNL.
Yeah. Is it me?
Is it me? I mean,
the cigarette executive, yeah.
And I actually went the cigarette executive. Remember, he also defended the company that makes fraudulent whoopee cushions. Remember that one? And they had who was it who was playing Mike Wallace?
Harry Shearer.
Harry Shearer, and he just does a great Mike Wallace. And Martin Short with the cigarette. He goes, "Is it me?" And he just and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm like, Democrats are becoming him.
Yeah,
and seriously, that's who they're.
That's exactly who they are.
That's who they're becoming. And you know, when I really thought about it was last night, and this is after we played the Democratic representative out of Texas.
Mm-hmm.
That was like so arrogant, you know, about what's a woman? A woman is a woman. What do you mean? What do you mean? You know, it was just, and it was that's what set me off. And I said, my God, the Democrats are becoming, I think it was Nathan Thurm, it was the name of the lawyer, the character on SNL. And it was like, when a woman is a woman. Well, how do I know if a woman is a woman? If they tell me, come on. What do you mean? So you don't believe if a woman tells you you're a woman? You don't believe that? Or you don't believe if a person tells you? Come on. As if, I mean, gaslighting to the extent that everybody, trying to make the point that everybody knows, it's obvious that what defines a woman is what a human being says they are, not the biology. And it's such a standard and well-known thing. What do you do? I mean, and it's that type of gaslighting that the Democrats are now into, and the whistleblower thing. And we'll play some of the audio of that coming up here in just a little bit. The gaslighting on it. Well, I'm a lawyer too. Well, it doesn't matter whether you're a lawyer.
Yeah.
It's what the definition, and a whistleblower is somebody who comes forward.
Right.
And then they had the expert on whistleblowers who was there.
Mm-hmm.
The one, and it was just like, no, they're a whistleblower. You don't get to define a whistleblower.
Right.
The law defines a whistleblower, and so they're trying to get caught up in not letting them. I mean, they were able to testify, and when you heard the stuff that they claim that the FBI is doing, it's exactly the opposite of what the FBI should be, and we all know that the FBI is tainted. The Durham report showed where the FBI is going, and it's a simple concept. It's a simple concept when you get to be, and some of the stuff was on January 6th, and when they went through that, they just said, look, there was wrongdoing, but the FBI was saying, if you're there, we can investigate you.
Right.
But that's not how things are done. And when I was having a conversation with a couple of people on this yesterday, I said, look, I know I've never served in law enforcement one day. I've never taken a law enforcement course, and I understand, and so does everybody else, how you're supposed to act. You take politics out of it, and you simply say, was there a crime committed here? And then you look and you say, okay, is there any type of evidence that this person did it? Okay, so you have a riot that happened. All right, we have these people on film that are doing something. All right, let's take anybody who was at this rally where there were, tens of thousands of people, and we can investigate any of them just because they were there, because some broke the law, and these FBI agents are saying, no, you can't do that. That's not how it works.
Right. I mean,
there needs to be a predicate.
I mean, technically, AOC was inside the building.
Right. And it's like, you need to have a predicate in order to do it, and you don't have one. And it's totally legit stuff, and the Democrats don't want it to be heard. They don't want it to be heard because it's damaging.
Well,
so
yeah, that's what I got from it yesterday is that, they were on the border hearings, they just, we just won't show up.
Yeah.
Right. And then try and deem them illegitimate. Well, we didn't get an invite. And then the second time, well, our GPS messed up. I don't know I can't even remember what the second excuse was. But then I thought yesterday while I was watching and listening to all of this back and forth, I thought, okay, this is the new tactic. You just you just disqualify the whistleblower, discredit the witness. By the way, in my mind, and I think somebody said it, I don't know which lawmaker, I wasn't in front of the TV when they said it. I believe they said something to the effect of, this is part of retaliation. If oversight is treating the witness this way, this is why you have that protection. I'm not sure if they made that point, but it's in my mind, was going through my mind over and over again because the word retaliation is just repeating in my mind. And if I'm the lawyer for that witness, that whistleblower, I'm going through there. And that's where it becomes especially dangerous.
Well, because if I don't know, and I'm a lawyer, what are the questions? If I don't know who's right in an issue and these people are claiming they're a whistleblower, do I immediately attack them?
Right. Without knowing, without knowing,
or do I ask questions first? And that's a great point, that the assumption of a whistleblower guilt from a member of Congress, and the whistleblower law comes from Congress, is that intimidation of a whistleblower?
No, I think this is retaliation because it is intimidation. It is trying to discount them, and it is a gaslighting of them. You must be crazy if you think this qualifies as whistleblower status. Well, that is exactly why we have whistleblower programs. For this right here. The left is demonstrating, and this is the only way you can approach it. Really, the only two ways they could have approached it is to ask those questions, and then if you believe more and more that the person isn't qualified as a whistleblower, which, by the way, is ridiculous. But if you believe they're not a solid witness, the left was going to try and discredit them. By the way, what did any of those committee members on the left have to do with the incidents in terms of what was being testified, what the whistleblower was claiming, and everything else? You mentioned January 6th, but there were other items that were on the table.
Oh yeah, the Catholics pro-life.
What was the school board meetings they brought
school
up?
Board meetings, yep.
And all those other things, but they jump out, and really it was their only game. It destroy the witness or do what they did with the border hearings and just not show up. And of course, it was always going to be about destroying the witness. And this is going to be the play because what they know here is if we have all of the whistleblowers that are in play right now, and it seems like we have a whole room full of them, if all of that comes to the surface and there is a whistleblower that has information, again, on, and which is different, a different situation, but has the quid pro quo evidence on Joe Biden, they know it's over. The Democrats know it's over. So they have to attack or just not show up at all.
Well, and look, it's legitimate to ask the questions. You claim this, the FBI says this. Mm-hmm. And then ask that's legitimate from both sides. And so that's actually a legit discussion to have. And they said, well, no, that's not what happened. Right. And so what they're saying is, no, the FBI isn't telling you the truth.
That's
at
why
this
I'm
point,
coming forward.
which is why we came forward to begin with. So
Right.
of course there's going to be a difference in what they're going to try to protect, themselves, and that's fine and dandy. But that's why Jim Jordan started out the entire thing going through these whistleblowers and their history in law enforcement, the military. I mean, just everything that they did in their lives. And then it was got to be, and I didn't see this back and forth, and I haven't been able to find it yet. I just popped into my mind now because there was so much going on all the whistleblowers yesterday and so much news. But there was one, and I caught it. I went to it right after they were saying, you just questioned the patriotism of one of the whistleblowers. And then Jordan went through. He goes, tell us what you've done in your life. 2 tours of, whatever. I mean, I can't remember, it was Iraq or Afghanistan, whatever, and went through all the awards and everything. He goes, that's my history in law enforcement. And here's the case that they all make, which is extremely compelling. We've lost everything because of this.
Mm-hmm.
We've lost everything. And now we've lost our anonymity because we've come forward here. Mm-hmm. And so we've lost everything. There is no advantage to doing what we did except the fact that we want the truth to come out.
We spelled that out with, I think, pretty much all of them along the way, that as we were learning about these whistleblowers, you asked the first question, okay, what's the motivation? The motivation is not there because there's going to be political retaliation, and we saw that demonstrated yesterday. And they're going to, I mean, honestly, you can't stay there. When you come forward as a whistleblower, you can't stay there. Now, the idea is to protect them, protect their job if they wish to stay there. But really, long term, you can't stay there because you've been outed as the whistleblower and everybody's looking at you and you don't know who might be treating you differently. And you're not going to get full protection. The effort is to get official protection to the extent that you can make things known, in this case to the American people, that a wrongdoing or number of wrongdoings has occurred without the fear of something happening to you, including retaliation.
And it's a way to expose a very non-transparent federal government for wrongdoings, and that's why whistleblowers are so important. Remember,
right,
when every one of those witnesses had to swear under oath.
Yes. Yeah, that's another thing. I think we touched on this along the way.
A whistleblower, if you come forward, you can't lie. If you lie and it's a lie, you can be prosecuted and go to prison. That's also part of the whistleblower.
And if you're lying to the IG, that's punishable as well.
Exactly. So they can't, if they lie. So what's the motivation for the whistleblowers is the question that you have to ask.
Right. To tell a lie to, further their career somewhere else. Yeah. It doesn't work that way. It does on the left. Peter Strzok, Andrew McCabe. Yeah, no, they get jobs at CNN or wherever. But it doesn't work that way normally. For a whistleblower, they weren't whistleblowers. It doesn't work that way when you're, you step, think about this. McCabe didn't, and Strzok didn't really separate themselves from the pack. They were separated. They were let go.
Yeah. Well,
the whistleblowers came forward.
Right. But as a whistleblower, again, when you start the process, you're not doing it to get a book because you have no idea where it's going to end.
And that's where I was going with this. When you step forward, you step forward on your own. Yeah. You're looking to get the protection. You're not being fired and then because this was by the way, this was also part of it from the left yesterday. Some of the Democratic committee members were insinuating, and I think one of them actually said or made the point that you are, this is and I forgot where I was going. The problem is that you're stepping forward. You're not. That they were disgruntled. They were just disgruntled employees. Had they been fired and then they came back months later and said, "Hey, okay, well then you've got at least the foundation for making that case, right?" You could say that about McCabe and Strzok. or anybody that's been fired that comes back later, you can say, well, they're just a disgruntled employee.
But that's okay. Because
No, that's fine.
It's fine to be a disgruntled employee.
As long as the claim stands,
right.
That withstands that kind of scrutiny.
Right. I'd say, yeah, I'm a disgruntled employee because what they're doing, I believe, is against the mission and against the law and against the policy of the FBI.
Yep.
866-90-RED-I.
Logging miles during the hot summer months can put a serious strain on you and your truck's health. Did you know pollutants and allergens in the air outside can enter your cab through the HVAC system without you even cracking a window? That's why it's important to check those cabin air filters. Inhaling dirty and polluted air can cause distress if you suffer from allergies or a respiratory illness. Not to mention the distraction dirty cabin air filters can cause by blocking proper airflow to your AC system when you need it most. Breathe easy when the air in your cab is fresh. This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-I on Red Eye Radio.
Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. He's Eric Harley. Coming up, DeSantis will be in next week. The report that Chris Christie will be in next week. My favorite story, by far, is the whole blank show on the Democratic primary that the Democrats are facing right now, and that's where in New Hampshire they actually have a law that it doesn't matter whether, and the legislature's run by Republicans. So there's a law that their primary must be a week before anyone else's. Mm-hmm. And so the first primary for Biden will be New Hampshire and not South Carolina. And so it's like, he's not in it. He's not in the primary right now, in the New Hampshire primary.
Right.
And it's like if he gets, and they're afraid that if he gets into the New Hampshire one, he'll lose. And so there's now the speculation, what does Biden do? Does he just forfeit and not participate in that? Or does he get involved in the whole thing that they talked about South Carolina being first doesn't come to fruition? I'm sorry, maybe nobody else found that funny. I found that hilarious.
Well, because I have to wonder do we even know who's running the campaign right now? I was gonna say if you're running the campaign, but who's running the campaign? The Biden campaign.
Well, I don't know, but the heavyweight came in for Robert Kennedy Jr.
I think she's going to do great, right? Williamson?
No. I'm talking about for Robert Kennedy, his campaign manager, Dennis Kucinich.
Dennis Kucinich, yeah. Well, I'm sorry. They were in the same article. They were talking about, and I knew you were talking about Kennedy.
Yeah.
They were talking about Marianne Williamson. And they were talking about, the backlash on the Democratic Party and the fact that there's not going to be any primaries. And then Fox News made the point, well, traditionally, the party that controls the White House, the incumbent party, does not have primary elections. Actually, they do. Trump had primary elections in 2020, and in our state, I don't know the rules of all the states. I don't have them in front of me, but no, you can primary against the sitting president. Mm-hmm. We've seen it happen before.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Let's get right to it here, just to give you a sample of the FBI whistleblowers testifying before the House weaponization of the federal government. And this is Congressman Matt Gaetz asking the whistleblowers a couple of questions.
August 2nd, 2022, a media organization obtained a copy of a document which whistleblowers subsequently authenticated to the committee that is styled the FBI's Domestic Terrorism Symbols Guide on Militia Violent Extremists. Mr. O'Boyle, are you generally familiar with that guide?
Yes.
And that guide identified certain things that made people more likely to be deemed a threat or terrorists, didn't it?
Yes.
And wasn't one of those things just the number 2 and the letter A next to each other?
Yes, it was.
And in your experience as a law enforcement official, does putting the word 2 or the letter 2 and A next to each other make someone more likely to be violent or law-breaking?
No.
And if someone signified the right, that they support the right to bear arms, was that also something in the symbol guide?
Yes.
And how about, this one really got me, the Betsy Ross flag. Was the Betsy Ross flag in the terrorism symbol guide?
It was.
And what about the Betsy Ross flag makes someone more likely to be a violent extremist?
I wish there was a reasonable explanation for that question.
There isn't. And people blew the whistle and said this stuff is crazy. Americans are being targeted. Mr. Friend, you ever been to a school board meeting?
Yes, I have.
FBI ever sent you to the parking lot of a school board meeting?
Yes, they have.
And in the parking lot of a school board meeting where the FBI sent you, you were taking down information regarding people's license plates.
That's correct.
Now, it wasn't the first time you'd been to a school board meeting, was it?
No, I went on my own as a private citizen.
As a parent.
Yes.
And so there you were. It must have been quite an interesting perspective. There you were taking down the information of people, parents attending school board meetings on behest of the FBI, and you had been one of those parents at a school board meeting. How did that feel?
Well, after I attended privately, my colleagues teased me that they were probably going to start investigating me.
You used to go after the worst of the worst, didn't you?
Yes, I believe so.
You went after people who looked at child porn,
Yes.
people who were sexually exploiting children.
Yes.
And then you were in the parking lot of a school board meeting, taking down the information of parents. What happened to the cases that you were working to protect our communities from the worst predators that exist?
I was told they were not to be resourced, and then after I was suspended, they were handed off to local law enforcement.
Wow, so the FBI just decided it was more important to have you in that parking lot of that school board meeting than getting the worst of the worst away from people that they could harm.
That's correct.
But you deserve the consequences you are getting, according to the ranking member. Mr. O'Boyle, the ranking member said that when people break the law, they deserve the consequences they get. And it doesn't matter that they served in the military. So what law did you break before the FBI packed up all your stuff and moved it across the country to Virginia?
No true law. The only thing I broke was not towing the line for the FBI. Like I said when I opened, my oath is to the Constitution, not to the FBI.
And our laws provide you avenues to talk to Congress, to talk to your supervisors about those concerns, right?
Correct.
And so you didn't deviate from that, did you?
No.
You didn't go to the media first, did you?
No.
You used what the law provided, and your family has paid an exquisite price for that, haven't they?
They have.
How old were your children when they moved you across the country?
6, 5, 3, and 2 weeks.
A 2-week-old baby. Could you get your stuff?
6 weeks later.
Oh, so for 6 weeks, almost every possession to your name the FBI had and wouldn't give back to you. How did you, what time of year was it? Was it winter, summer?
When I reported, it was in September. So when we were traveling, it was summertime, essentially. So we had basically summer clothes, but then we were basically stranded in Wisconsin, which is where we're from. It gets cold there pretty quick. And
yeah, I'll take your word for it. I'm a fool.
So there you go. Just a little sample of it yesterday. Not a good look for the Democrats at all.
No, it isn't,
Not a
and
good
it's
look.
not a good look for management at FBI. And we have said this repeatedly that because we started asking the question immediately when these stories started coming out. What do the rank and file agents who have to do the work think about all this?
Yeah. We've
Well,
asked that
now
many
we
times.
know, at least in a couple of cases. And there have to be more. Now, here's the thing, is that these former agents, these agents decided that they were going to have to give it all up in order to make sure we all knew about it. They could have kept quiet. And others did. And it's not that you blame the other ones, because the question, the balance is all right, do I give up my career and let the American people know what's going on? I couldn't do this for a living. I couldn't go to a school board meeting and take down and make a list of all of the license plates there, knowing exactly where that's going.
Unless you had evidence or something that would predicate a federal criminal act.
But that wasn't what was going on.
And that's
that's why I couldn't
right.
do it. There's no way.
And-
These agents knew that this was an all-out attack on the parents who were speaking up.
But this also goes after these whistleblowers are also directly saying the opposite of what the Department of Justice. Well, we never looked at people that went to school board meetings as domestic terrorists. Then why were you there? Why are you at a school board meeting? Why is the FBI taking license plate numbers at a school board meeting? What federal crimes did these people commit?
Right.
I mean, it's scary when you think about it. It's scary that the federal government resources are being used like this, and thank goodness there are FBI agents out there who said, this can't continue. It may destroy my entire career. It may destroy my life. It may, my reputation will be attacked. I will lose anonymity. Threats are coming my way. And the only thing I've always tried to do is enforce the law. And it's just, you and I, we've spent a lot of time talking about, conspiracy versus the culture of rot that exists in the FBI and the Department of Justice today. It's not gone. It's still there, especially in the management of the FBI. And it's not the way that the FBI is supposed to work. It's not the way any law enforcement organization is supposed to work.
Nope.
And it's downright scary when you think about, here's this FBI agent, sitting there going, what the hell am I doing in the parking lot of a school board meeting, taking license plates numbers of people not suspected of committing any federal crime? What is the purpose of being there?
Yeah, this is, again, I have no doubt that other agents have the same concern. They're just, looking at it, again, as the balance, as the question whether or not they can give up their career in order to become a whistleblower.
Well, you had three
That's
there.
why. That's why you don't have, in any given case, you don't have usually, and I've never heard of, dozens of whistleblowers coming forward in a case. Maybe there is a case and I don't know about it. But it's usually only a few, if not just one.
It's a tough thing in life, especially when you think about it, because if you're an FBI agent, and remember, I can't think of the woman who testified, who quit the FBI and testified, she said, and it's true, that it's a passion. It's just not another job.
Right.
You go there for highly moral reasons.
Yeah.
And it has to be a shock, especially when you're a veteran agent and you've served, and all of a sudden you feel that the mission statement of the FBI is no longer to enforce the law, but to become a political arm of a particular party.
I have a family member, and I watched it. I watched that dream of, he had two dreams. Believe it or not ever living in New York City, wanted to work for NYPD, which he did for a number of years, and worked for the FBI, which he does now. I've watched that, that young mind for so many years. That was the one goal. That was the thing. That's what he wanted to do. He knew he was going to have to serve somewhere like New York and then work toward getting a job at the FBI. He was able to do that. And I can't imagine look, you're going to be disenchanted a number of ways. You're going to learn things about humans that will really, just it'll build some calluses on you. And that alone sometimes will have people, redirecting themselves and saying, okay, well, this wasn't for me after all. That does happen. But to have it happen, have your dream, the job you believe in, because for many of them, it is a calling, squashed by this kind of behavior.
When you think of when Gates was asking him and telling him, the symbols that the FBI looks at for suspected terrorists, and one is if, 2A, which means Second Amendment, or if you're promoting the right to bear arms, that is an indication that you're more likely to be a terrorist. If you're pro-life, that's an indication that you're more likely, to be a terrorist. But again, the entire thing of when you look at federal law enforcement, when you look at Biden, for example, just to throw this out, where he was saying, that white supremacy is the biggest terrorist threat that we face. Mm-hmm. Apparently, climate change activists aren't. But
yeah, Greta's on the phone.
But that's a complete lie. It's a complete lie, and so they're making everything is being driven by politics in federal law enforcement. And if you're a true law enforcement professional, that has to be one of the most repulsive, disgusting things that you could possibly imagine.
Well, because, when you're doing that job, you're not doing it for the pay. And you look at all of the danger that is attached to doing that type of job. It has to be a calling. You have to really want to do that job, to do it well. And then to have people use you as one of the pawns to get their agenda done. Wow.
Think about this. If you believe in the Constitution, there are people in the FBI, that management of the FBI, that view you as more likely to be a terrorist if you believe in the Constitution.
Yeah.
866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. More on the whistleblowers. Really interesting. 3 counties now in New York. 3 counties in Western New York. More conservative counties have said, do not send migrants here. If any hotel books migrants, for New York City, being paid for New York City, $2,000 fine per migrant. These counties are now going after, saying you're not going to put them here. And then you had the Chicago mayor come out and say, I don't have the exact words, but he's furious, absolutely furious at the state of Texas. Just livid.
Well,
that the state of Texas is, and it's like, you're not angry at Biden for creating this entire thing?
Right.
Really amazing.
Texas isn't bringing them in from other countries.
No. That's being done by the Biden administration.
And this is going to be progressively worse next summer as the mayor of Chicago is hosting the DNC.
It's wicked, unconscionable for Texas to send border crossers to sanctuary cities.
Uh-huh. You guys wanted that.
I know.
So now DeSantis and Abbott and even the mayor of El Paso have Democrats saying, I think we need to undo the sanctuary policy. Think about that. This really has resulted in, Adams went to a judge in New York City.
Yeah.
Undo the sanctuary policy, please. Wow.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across the USA and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, Michael Schellenberger wrote a piece yesterday, Why the FBI and Democrats Are Attacking Whistleblowers. Now, for people who don't know who Michael Schellenberger is, he's a liberal. He's a liberal Democrat. He was part of the Twitter files. Went in and looked at Twitter and said, and he's been attacked by the left because he was one of those, along with Matt Taibbi and others, who went through the records. As I said, Elon Musk didn't tell us anything except go through the records and, you tell us what you find. And that's where, he found before Musk took over Twitter, what they were attempting to do to censor. And that became the Twitter files. So he was immediately attacked. But as he has talked about before, he is a liberal Democrat. He is also, just so you know, a liberal Democrat who believes in climate change, but believes that what the left is doing to stop climate change is completely and totally wrong. Which I love that unique perspective.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
it's
right.
The same as he's the same as Bjorn Lomborg. There, he is also part of the organization that's trying to clean up places like Portland, Oregon, and San Francisco. And as a liberal, is furious about how Democrats are enabling the homeless with drug activities, just so you know where he stands on a variety of different issues out there. So he's a liberal, not a Republican, not a Trump supporter. Why the FBI and Democrats are attacking whistleblowers. Just a couple of paragraphs here. The FBI whistleblowers who testified before Congress today are not actually whistleblowers, say the FBI and Democrats. Rather, they are disloyal Americans who undermined investigations into the January 6, 2021 riot at the Capitol building in Washington, D.C., said Delegate Stacey Plaskett from the Virgin Islands, who is the ranking member, I believe, there for the Democrats. My Republican colleagues have brought in these former agents, men who lost their security clearances because they were a threat to our national security. That's what the Democrats are claiming here with these whistleblowers.
Yeah.
The ranking member of the House Weaponization Subcommittee, who out of malice or ignorance or both have put partisan agenda above the oath they swore to serve the country. That is a quote. As Michael Schellenberger, a Democrat, says, but there is no evidence that any of the FBI whistleblowers are or were ever a threat to national security. One of them, Marcus Allen, won 2 medals fighting in Iraq and Kuwait. Another, Garrett O'Boyle, served in the Army in Iraq, worked as a police officer, and graduated with honors in criminology and law. Democrats pointed out that the FBI had revoked the security clearances of two whistleblowers, Allen and Steve Friend, earlier this month. That news came in a letter that Christopher Dunham, an acting assistant director of the FBI, sent to the House Judiciary Committee 2 nights ago. The FBI claims Allen expressed sympathy for persons and organizations that advocate, threaten, or use force of violence or use any other illegal or unconstitutional means in an effort to prevent the federal government personnel from performing their official duties. That's a quote. But neither the FBI nor the Democrats presented any evidence that Allen, Friend, or any of the FBI whistleblowers who testified participated or even sympathized with the January 6th riot at the U.S. Capitol building. Quote, I was not in Washington, D.C. on January 6th. I played no part in the events of January 6th, and I condemn all criminal activity that occurred, said Allen. Others suggested the FBI agents were exaggerating. You all have employment grievances, said Representative Gerald Connolly. By the way, he's a piece of work. That doesn't make you whistleblowers. We're listening to sad tales of certain individuals, said Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz. These individuals have been determined not to be whistleblowers. But the FBI agents testifying followed the legally required whistleblower protocols within the FBI, and they are not fringe agents. Allen, for example, was a 2019 Employee of the Year for the Charlotte Field Office. Friend, a special agent for the FBI for 8.5 years. O'Boyle and Allen all said that they made protective whistleblower disclosures and yet were retaliated against by the FBI. Allen was suspended without pay in January of 2022. O'Boyle was transferred to a new unit, moved his family across the country, and then was placed on an unpaid suspension the first day he arrived. For decades, the FBI was caught spying on Martin Luther King Jr. and abusing its powers for political ends. Democrats emphasize strong constraints on domestic spying and the importance of whistleblowers. Now Democrats are savaging these former public servants as threats to national security. Why is that? There you go. That's Michael Schellenberger yesterday.
Well, look, the Democrats, if you look at this approach, I mean, the only thing you can do is try and destroy the witness, right?
Yep.
You come out but you don't even give them a chance. This is something that the Democrats have been known for. They walk out of committee hearings, or not show up at all when it comes to the recent border hearings. And in this case, just try and write it off. Oh, well, you're not a whistleblower. You're not a whistleblower. This isn't a whistleblower. I don't know why we're here. Everybody knows it's not a whistleblower. Yeah. Is it me? I mean, seriously, this is their behavior.
Nathan Thurm. Exactly.
Yeah. Is it me?
Is it me? What do you mean? What are you talking about?
Yeah. Everybody knows smoking is good for you. Martin Short portraying a tobacco company executive in a very funny bit. Classic comedy.
I mean, that's who the Democrats have become. They become Nathan Thurm.
It is. Well, of course we can. Of course we have to fight for the right to have children go through genital mutilation surgery. Everybody knows. It's health care.
I started thinking yesterday because I was in a discussion with a couple of people yesterday, people that I know, and we got into conversations. And I was saying, it's really incredible, and this is partly off of what we were talking about, last night about the Democrats and how insane what they promote are. And the liberal transgender activist movement is an example. And as we've always said, if they actually believe that, if they're actually trying to sell you that a biological man can be a biological female and therefore should be able to compete against a female, that is pure insanity. And everybody listening knows that. Yeah. And it's got nothing to do with what's in a person's mind, the dysphoria, the gender dysphoria, as the medical professionals look at, transgenderism as. Nobody is, I don't know what's in somebody's mind. I'm not judging them. I have a great deal of compassion for any particular demographic that is suffering with whatever the dysphoria, however medically you wish to put it, that has a suicide rate of 25%. Excuse me, an attempted suicide rate of 25%. And that's from the Democrats that support. And the gender professors across the country, specifically the Berkeley professor who testified numerous times before Congress and says that's why you have to lie about the whole transgender movement, because if you don't, those people may commit suicide and that blood is on your hands, which of course is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. But that's what they're trying to sell the American public. The American public, you know it. If you're a Democrat listening right now, you know that is insane. Mm-hmm. That's completely insane. And I started thinking, and we started talking yesterday, how everything across the board is that way. When you think about it, they're promoting delusional ideas as legitimate, and then going, well, what do you mean? I mean, well, this is a way of course it is. You can, and we played the Democratic representative in Texas who was asked, what is a woman? Well, a woman is a woman. Well, what do you mean? You can't define something by using the same word. What is a woman? And He goes, well, if a woman tells me she's a woman, then I believe her. She's a woman. You don't? He's like,
yeah.
Like, well, what?
Of course, that's the way it works.
So a person tells you what they are, and that's what they are. Come on. I mean, what do you? And totally,
I sold him the bourbon because the 9-year-old told me he was 21.
Right. I mean, but it was like, and this is just normal way of thinking. Don't you know that? And totally what Nathan Thurm did, the character on Saturday Night Live. But I started thinking, could you imagine if the Republicans came out? Because I was trying to think of an analogy of the insanity of the Democrats right now. And I said, it's almost like if the Republicans came out and said, look, gravity doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Gravity does not exist. Come on, gravity doesn't exist. Can you see gravity? Can you prove gravity? Well, yeah, if you jump off, if you jump off a cliff, you'll fall down and kill yourself. That's gravity. You don't know that. You don't know that.
Have you ever done that?
No. Then how can planes fly?
You're still alive.
How can planes fly? Well, because you're talking about an airplane wing where the high pressure is developed beneath it.
So clouds just float.
That create the lip.
See, is that what you're telling me?
Exactly.
So clouds just float.
Right. Go. When I'm starting to make the point on the legitimate scientific point on a plane, go right to clouds. But it's almost as if, all right, so kids, get all the kids and have them get all the lemmings over here, and kids start jumping over the cliff. Just flap your arms harder.
Well, this new non-gravity, can't say anti-gravity. Would it be anti-gravity, right? I think it would be anti-gravity.
No, transgravity.
Transgravity.
Right.
This new anti-gravity movement, we could just call it CARE for children.
Exactly, right.
If we can do that with genital mutilation, then we can do that with anything, right? I mean, we're just calling it CARE.
But it's just, and across the board, it's pure insanity. Up is down, left is right. Nothing makes sense. Nothing has a definition. They just say there's nothing there. And this is another example. Well, nothing's in the Durham report. Well, there's a hell of a lot in the Durham report. Sure, there is. There's a hell of a lot, in there. When one political campaign sets up another political campaign, and everybody knows what that political campaign is doing in law enforcement, and enables that for a period of 3 years, knowing the law enforcement, the opposition party, law enforcement, knowing what the intent was of the Hillary Clinton campaign to set up the Trump campaign, and law enforcement goes along with it for 3 years, you got a big problem. And all that relates to everything that we saw with the whistleblowers yesterday. It all relates to the filthy rot inside of the FBI management, and the Department of Justice management.
And you also know that you also can tell now from yesterday that the Democrats' new play is going to be as disruptive as you can be during the process, during the hearings.
Yeah, exactly.
On whistleblower stuff. Because they know where this is going. This isn't the only whistleblower, and they know there's, that the Republicans are going to want to bring all of those whistleblowers forward eventually, and they know what's coming. So start this approach now, set the room on fire, pull the fire alarm, and everybody out.
They want the FBI to be their political arm.
Absolutely.
That's what when you saw yesterday, whether it was Wasserman Schultz or Plaskett or Goldman, whatever, they want the FBI to be their political arm.
Yeah.
They believe the FBI being their political arm makes them stronger.
Right.
866-90 Red Eye.
Leased owner-operators should be aware of 4 common revenue myths, lest you fall into the trap of mistaking revenue for profit. Myth 1. Concentrate on increasing revenue because costs will take care of themselves. This is not true, as costs are fundamental to the profit equation and the area where owners exert the most control to improve. Myth 2. More revenue per mile is the answer to all problems. Though carrier pay packages differ in structure, revenue per mile really doesn't change much from company to company, but there can be a big difference in miles, overall gross revenue, reimbursements, and fees. Myth 3. All you have to do to be successful is run a lot of miles. In reality, revenue is only half of the profit equation. Costs are the other half. It's possible to generate a lot of revenue, yet spend $1.10 to make every dollar. Myth 4. You can tell how well you're doing by the size of your settlement check. The settlement check is only a part of the success picture. Miles driven, loads hauled, conditions, mechanical problems, time off, and especially costs all have to be considered. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Shell Rotella. Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley and I'm Gary McNamara. Just quickly, I did go back into the archives here and found some Nathan Thurm here from SNL to show you that the Democrats are becoming that Martin Short character on SNL. Mm-hmm. And this goes back, this has got to go back to the mid-'80s, right? At least?
Yeah, I
to
think
the 80s.
So. I think it was right about then, yeah.
And this is on cigarette smoking, and he's the lawyer for the cigarette companies. Mm-hmm. All right, and so he's being asked, and there was a whole beginning of this where they talked about cigarettes and the problem, and then they bring him out as a guest. I'm just going to do the part where they bring him out as a guest.
Yeah, it's a mock-up of 60 Minutes.
Yes. Well, no, this one isn't.
This one isn't.
This one isn't. This isn't the Mike Wallace one.
Okay.
Yeah. So here we go. This is like just I don't even know who the guy who's the newscaster for SNL at the time. I don't even recognize him. So it was in that time period.
Yeah. Right.
But here we go. All right.
Mr. Thurm, we appreciate your willingness to talk with us tonight.
What do you mean by that?
Well, simply that we want to thank you for taking time out from your schedule.
Why wouldn't I be able to take time out from my schedule? It's so interesting that you think I wouldn't be able to take time out from my schedule, as if the tobacco industry's case was so weak that defending it took up all my time. It's so funny that you would think that. It's so funny.
Well, Mr. Thurm, if I may begin, the links between cigarette smoking and cancer and heart disease are well established.
Are they? I don't know that they are.
Well, Mr. Thurm, scientific research has shown that to be the case.
No, it hasn't.
Well, with respect, I'm afraid that it has.
That's your opinion. And I can show you equal numbers of studies that prove that smoking can be beneficial for you.
You can?
Yes.
Well, could you name them?
Why should I name them? Why don't you name them?
Well, how could I name them? I've never heard of these studies.
I know that.
Well, if I may continue...
You don't think I know that? That's so funny that you don't think I know that. Why wouldn't you think I know that? Is it me or is it him? I don't know.
The ultimate virtue signaling. I know that. We all know that.
And the funny thing is the ashes on, he's smoking, pretending he's smoking a cigarette. And the ashes are getting longer and longer and longer on the cigarette that he's smoking. But he did a bunch of them. The whoopee cushion one with Mike Wallace was just hilarious. I mean, that was some of the best. about the defective whoopee cushions, about the non-licensed manufacturers.
That is something right out of the brain of, and I don't know how much of he wrote, if any, but that's the whoopee cushion one is right directly out of the brain of Martin Short.
Yeah.
I mean, it's.
But I mean, that's
Martin
what,
Short.
and I started thinking that last night after we played that Democratic representative from Texas who was like,
Busey,
well,
yeah.
A woman is a woman. I mean,
Yeah.
if a woman says, if a person says they're a woman, then they're a woman.
I
mean,
believe her.
Duh, why don't believe him?
I
Why
believe
not?
her.
I believe him.
I believe her.
It's like that was, and I'm like, my God, they've actually come to the point where the Democratic Party argues like Nathan Thurm.
Right, yeah. Can't you see that's a woman?
Yeah.
Just by her saying so?
Right.
The Bonus Show.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Let's talk more about whistleblowers with Dan in California. Dan, welcome. You're on Red Eye Radio. Hi, Dan.
Gentlemen, good morning. The more I listen to this conversation, the more angry I'm becoming, and the reason why is twofold. One, these brave people, these brave men from the FBI that are whistleblowers and relaying what happened to them, if they're saying that their higher-ups are threatening their livelihoods and their jobs, the obvious question, the follow-up question from Jim Jordan and the Republicans is, who? I want names. I want to know who these people are. I want these people brought before this committee to say, why did you do this? And the second reason is because back in the day, back in the Obama years, I was part of the Tea Party conservative groups that were harassed like you can't believe, especially by the IRS. Our computers were hacked into. We were looked at by every agency you can possibly think of. That was, 10, 11 years ago, maybe longer.
The lowest,
I am still waiting for justice.
Right, the Lois Lerner situation with the IRS, going after conservative groups. Well, I'll tell you this. I'm not sure when the whistleblowers come forward what the process is of getting other people, of getting other people to testify. I don't know because we know. I don't know about these whistleblowers, but other whistleblowers. Eventually, the inspector general is the one that starts an investigation on it. Correct, Eric?
Yes, it can go to the direct supervisor, but if they believe the whistleblower, and we're led to believe from the stories, in fact, I think in all the cases, that they're concerned about the behavior of the supervisors, then it goes directly to the IG, and then the IG has the discretion as to whether or not approach Congress. The IG can go to Congress. I don't know about oversight and what oversight can get from the IG, except for maybe a report down the road. I don't know if they can. I don't know what subpoena power they have.
I'm sure in the whistleblower statement that the management has been identified.
Yeah.
Now maybe not publicly, but I'm assuming that Jim Jordan knows who it is, or the inspector, if this inspector general is involved in it of the Department of Justice, which would be Horowitz, right? I still believe it's Michael Horowitz.
I think it's still Horowitz, yeah.
Right. And so if he's doing an investigation, they know because they're going through the, they're going through the statement.
Right.
My boss told me this. But now when it comes to putting out their names, I don't know if there's anything that's limiting Jordan from doing it. I don't believe there would be, to ask that question, who is this person, then answering that question to get them to testify. That's going to be a pretty long process because because the FBI is going to say well, this is a personnel matter and we don't discuss even if they came forward, this is a personnel matter and we don't discuss personnel matters.
Ideally, you would want an IG report on this. You would want the entire process to have played out and the IG to have taken whatever measures possible, then the follow through with oversight and all that, in order to get the entire package as a whole, and then have hearings on that. The problem is that the IG report could take a long time. There really is, I don't know of any time limit that an IG would have in order on issuing a report in a case like this. Because it's different than the IG taking on their own investigation internally. It is in part that, but the idea here in the whistleblower protection process is that you're protecting that whistleblower at every step. And so you're looking into the claims of somebody else. And so the IG is kind of doing the work basically assigned by those claims, those allegations that from the whistleblower. So the process could take, I don't know how long. Because it depends. I think it depends on how far you go back. And the IG only has access to people in the FBI, people that are currently still there. And so if anybody, in terms of interviewing them, if anybody steps down or leaves the FBI before the IG is done, that will change things. But I'm with the caller. I think what Dan said, I share in that frustration and that growing anger. This can't happen. If you're on the left, you don't want this to happen under any administration. But the problem is that the Democratic Party and the operatives and the activists on the left have helped to build a mentality in the rank and file, in the minds of the rank and file, that yes, this is how we behave. This is what we do. You win at any cost. And if conservatives are showing up to school board meetings, we're going to stomp it out. It's a threat to our agenda. And that's who they are. So they built out this mentality of, nope, we own it, and we'll come after you. And they tried to use that mentality in part yesterday during the hearings. We're going to stomp this out. This isn't whistleblower. Everybody knows it's not a whistleblower. Nothing to see here. Durham report. There's no Durham report. John Durham. Who's that? Who's Durham? No, there's no. What report? I don't even know what you're talking about. This is exactly where we make the joke about Martin Short's character, but it's absolutely true. There's no Durham report. Instead of going through it, you have the liberal activists in the media going through and then basically just writing the headline. There's nothing here. That's the headline. Well, there's nothing here. Nothing here. There's nothing here. I expect to see that from Chuck Todd this weekend. Well, yeah, but there's nothing here. Yeah, well, there's nothing here. There's nothing here. There's nothing. Go through the report bit by bit and tear it down. Counter the claims, allegations, or timeline events that Durham spells out in his report. Go ahead. Because there are plenty of people, by the way, on the left that won't even do that because they know they can't. They know those things actually happen. They know the actual truth. If you've got any questions, you can start by asking Jake Tapper over at CNN. I know not everybody at CNN sees it for what it is, but at least he acknowledged it.
From what I get here, the Inspector General is required to investigate. No matter how the whistleblower comes forward, they are supposed to, especially now that the retaliation has been claimed.
Yeah, no, they are required to be a part of it either way.
Because the FBI whistleblower retaliation finding is appropriate when there are reasonable grounds to believe that an FBI employee or an employee of any other department component has taken or threatened to take a personal action as retaliation for a protected disclosure made by a complainant.
Yeah, no, that's
And
the
so-
role
and-
of the
right,
IG is
right,
to inspect anything internal.
Right. So, well, my point is, I mean, I just didn't know because did they go to Congress first? I don't know if these particular whistleblowers went to the IG first and then came to Congress, or whether they went to Congress first.
Well, the process would be, if not going to their supervisor first, then going to the IG first. Not going to Congress.
Oh, no, you can
that
go to-
would be exceptional.
Yeah,
if they did that.
You can go to Congress. I mean, the whistleblower with against Trump went directly to
And
Adam
we
Schiff.
talked about why
Yeah.
that was out of line in the process.
Right.
Especially a CIA officer. At the CIA, they have different rules.
Right. But that's still a whistleblower.
No, it is, but you went outside the process.
Right.
You're supposed to go to the IG, in that case, the intelligence community IG, which is different than the office over at the FBI, the IG's office at the FBI. We talked about that, about a CIA officer going straight to, because here's the problem, especially with the CIA, the nature of what they do and the information that they have, and going to Adam Schiff's office, and you're sharing it with Adam Schiff's staffers. Well, they may not, in fact, likely don't have clearance, and you're sharing information with them. This is why you have a process where you go to the Inspector General. I think in the case of the CIA, you have to involve the director and the IG.
Right.
Now, we don't know all of the claims on the FBI side. How many go directly at Director Wray, for instance? So this is why it gets back to the point of the caller. It will be important eventually to learn, for the American people to learn who is responsible for this kind of behavior.
And they're going to know who it is, because the complaint is, my boss did this, or my boss. Well, who was your boss?
They have to name. They have to name them in the complaint.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Eventually, we'll learn. I don't know how long it will take, but eventually we will learn.
Let's go to Dave in Roanoke, Virginia. Dave, welcome. You're on Red Eye Radio.
Yeah, good morning, guys. I've been wanting to call you guys about this for a while, and now I figured it was the perfect time with the FBI whistleblower testimony going on today. I was an agent in the Dallas division, actually, during the Obama years, and I was invited, along with other supervisors, to our supervisor's house for dinner one weekend. And so I'd never been to his house. We went to his house that weekend, and I got there by GPS or whatever, and I got there and I said, this cannot be my supervisor's house, because the front yard was littered with Obama signs. And I said, this has got to be wrong, because that's against everything the FBI teaches us. You can't be a political activist and you have to be neutral. But it turns out that his wife was working for the Obama campaign, and that justified the whole thing. And so I guess the point I'm trying to make is that if you wonder where all this bias comes from, like from McCabe and all these other people, look at what is going on, what's influencing their life.
Oh, yeah.
And this stuff is real, and it's going on.
Well, we talked about Bruce Orr was a high-ranking official during the Russian hoax thing, and thank you for that, Dave. But his wife, Nellie Orr, worked for Fusion GPS during the whole time that they were getting that bogus information on Trump, which turned out to not be true. You had a husband and wife team. Now, I will say this, and we talked about it the other day. Bruce Orr did say at one point, according to the information found during the investigations, that he told others at the FBI, look, we can't verify this whole dossier thing. Not all of this has been verified, so there was that. But his wife, Nellie Orr, was working at Fusion GPS. So, yeah, there seems to be a pattern of that kind of behavior.
I would still, if I'm, in the FBI, I'd still say, no, we don't do that as a family.
You would. That would have to be an understanding in the household.
Right.
Look, we can't do that.
Can't do that. 866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up, following the top of the hour, Chicago's new mayor says Texas is wicked and unconscionable for sending border crossers to sanctuary cities. Well, then, don't you have to go to the source? One would think you would have to go to the source, correct?
I would think so.
You would go to the source and say, well, wait a minute, what's creating this? So if Texas is wicked, is Biden wicked by the mayor of Chicago's
this would be a Brandon versus Brandon.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Adams has already, kind of gone after the administration for at least reached out and said, hey, we need some help here.
Well, he hasn't yet. I mean, he's blaming it's the old Lori Lightfoot. Let's blame Texas for the problem that we're having.
Brandon in Chicago hasn't done anything yet in terms of going after. Well, maybe it's because he doesn't want them to change their mind about the convention.
Or Brandon doesn't want to go yet in Chicago. Mm-hmm. Let's go.
Yeah, he's not ready to go.
Not ready to go yet.
Yeah,
no.
He just got there.
Yeah.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Yes, we are. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Hello. Good morning. We're everywhere. Just download our Red Eye Radio app today. You can listen when and where you want if you can't listen live overnight. I want to play this audio. This came out yesterday, and this guy should just get much more publicity because he's great, and we have played him before, but not for a while. And this is Associated Press's Matt Lee. And he covers the State Department for Associated Press. But he asks such blunt questions.
Yeah.
Well, he wasn't as blunt yesterday. He was trying initially the way he asked the question. Then he got blunt later on. But this is where he discovered just yesterday, that the emails of the State Department, all of a sudden, everybody is mandated to have their pronouns. And what he found out is the State Department is misgendering a ton of people. People that are male are being listed as female. And I watched this yesterday. I just went, wow. But here's a little bit of the back and forth yesterday between the State Department representative and Associated Press's Matt Lee.
Have you gotten any emails from any of your colleagues in the last, before you came out here, obviously not while you've been at the podium, but since about noon or so?
Why don't you get to your question? And then
Have you?
What's your question?
Are you able to look at them right now?
My email? Yeah. I'm not going to pull up my email from the podium.
No, you don't need to show it to me.
Yeah.
I want to know if you've noticed anything different in the from line where it gives the sender.
Matt, this would be a lot better if you would just ask us what your question was.
Well, I mean, so you haven't noticed anything?
No.
Okay, so within the last hour and a half, 2 hours, the State Department's internal email system, and I've tested this, so
Okay.
I know that it's true, has added pronouns to people's, not their signature, but to their, where it says from.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it will say him, he, his, or her,
Yeah.
or she, hers. Why? This is not an optional thing. This is something that has been just arbitrarily imposed. And I understand that people could have their pronouns attached if they wanted them to a signature before, but this is not something that anyone has a choice about. And so I'm just wondering why and who made this decision.
Well, Matt, I have not seen this phenomenon for myself.
Okay, well, I have, and I'll show it to you.
And is it just, to ask you a question, is it just for internal State Department people
Obviously
when they're
not,
emailing
because I
out?
tested it.
So
and I got
if
an
you
email
send
from
an
someone
email,
in this building, and whereas before it did not have any of these pronouns attached to the sender's name, it now does. And I've also been told from other people that many of them, or at least
well, when you send it, does it have the?
I'll show it to you
Okay.
in a second.
Well, what I will
if
just
you
say,
don't know anything about this, then that's fine.
Yeah.
Can you look into it? 'Cause I'd like
I'm
to
happy.
know
I'm
why.
happy to look into it. What
Why
I will
this would
just
not be an optional thing for people to do. But the problem is that a lot of them, or at least some of them so far as I've been able to tell, are wrong. They're giving the wrong pronoun. So men are being identified as women and women as men, and this has nothing to do with whatever transgender or anything like that. But it's ridiculous.
This phenomenon has not made its way to my Outlook, but I'm happy to check on this for you.
I just told you about it, so can you
broadly though,
get an
Matt?
explanation and
Broadly
find
though,
out?
Matt, of course, the ability for
I don't have a
individuals
problem
to
with doing it, and if people want to have their whatever pronoun on attached to it is fine, but it should be a choice, right? Not something that is the State Department imposes on people,
thank you,
especially
Matt.
if.
Thank you. He doesn't want to continue the discussion. Well, you and I always wondered, when will it become mandatory? When will companies say it's mandatory to put your pronoun if you're, on your email or, if you're representing the company, that pronouns are required?
No, I mean,
because this is
it might be happening. I haven't heard it. It might be happening already, but I think we're headed in that direction.
Because that's the claim from Associated Press's Matt Lee, is that the State Department, everyone has it.
Yeah,
and
it's mandatory.
And what he is saying, then for the people he's talked to, said no, it's mandatory that we do it, and they're getting it wrong. Now, does the State Department dictate what your gender is? Because if they've gotten so many wrong, as Associated Press's Matt Lee says, does somebody else now? Man, this is a huge liberal circular firing squad. Does somebody else in the State Department determine your gender?
No, I mean, look,
your sex, your gender.
It's and I could see them we're just going to sign something. If you don't put something, we're just going to, because if you listen to what Matt Lee is saying, that was the question in my mind. He said, well, they're getting it wrong. Well, who's getting it wrong? Is the State Department just saying, all right, if you haven't assigned it yet, here's the deadline. We're just going to put something down.
Right. If you don't assign yourself a gender, we will.
Yeah.
So you better assign, because if you don't, we may get it wrong. Oh, that would be the best ever.
Well,
that would be the best ever if that was the case, because that's a huge liberal circular firing squad there.
And the thing is, too, is that, of course, there are jokesters in every place of employment.
Oh, yeah.
We don't have any here.
No.
And so,
no, just to, I mean, if the company required of me, then I would oblige and I would become he/haw.
Mm-hmm. And some guys just think it'll be funny to put she, her.
Oh, yeah.
And they're not transgender. Look, man, I put she, her.
Or Michael Jackson fans, he. Because
this actually, I don't know if Matt Lee knows it. This started when Hillary was at the State Department, and she put her Her pronouns were her time. Does that violate the Hatch Act? I'm not sure if it does. It might. Would she care if it did?
Well, everything for Karine Jean-Pierre is the Hatch Act.
Yeah.
It's like,
Can you talk about the president? No.
Wouldn't it be great?
He's running again. I can't talk about what the president thinks on anything because he's running again. Hatch Act.
I wonder if it'd be great if you found out later on she has no idea what the Hatch Act even is.
Right.
It's just they told her, if you don't understand the question,
just
simply say you can't answer because of the Hatch Act.
Yeah.
Because it's already happened. Reporters go, that's not the Hatch Act. You can answer that question. No, I can't. It's the Hatch.
No,
which made me wonder, does she even know what the Hatch Act is?
Yeah, we respect the law around here. Has anyone seen Hunter?
But, I mean, that has to be coming next. It's mandatory. You must identify as a gender.
Yeah.
Because we know, because that's the whole thing, to force people to celebrate and participate in their delusion.
Yeah.
That's always been this, you must admit what I am. And if you don't, you don't address me, well, then you're transphobic or whatever, and I'm allowed to get angry at you and scream in your face.
They have non-binary, right?
Yes.
Non-gender. Non and non.
Absolute delusion.
No, I mean,
absolute delusional.
And how could you tell me I'm wrong for that?
No, you can't. That's the thing. You can be
because
whatever
if
you
they
want to
make
be.
theirs up along the way, this is not based in science. Clearly, it's based in someone's preference. And if I put that as my preference, how dare you say it's wrong?
Yeah.
I'm offended
because I'm hee-haw because I am. This is basically the next life I am of. I can't think of the banjo player's name. Oh, geez, the great.
Roy Clark?
Roy Clark, yes.
Yeah?
Roy Clark.
Yeah.
I'm the reincarnation of Roy Clark. So.
Yeah. I'm going to put Har and Lee.
Like that.
No, but here the thing is that, remember, because one of the many political gaffes in 2020 that Biden made on the trail was what? Answering the question, how many genders are there? If I make up my own, that doesn't already exist. Who are you to say?
He never explained what they were, did he? He
No,
just said 3.
He didn't identify the 3.
And it's like, whoa, you can't say there's 3.
Dude.
There's as many genders as you want.
My gosh. We're not going to even have you at the parade. No.
So I knew this was going to happen sooner or later. I'm amazed it didn't happen already. And if it's true what Matt Lee says, that from what he gets, it's mandatory. You must identify as a... Well, why?
Yeah, right.
That's transphobic.
Right.
Why must? If I must, that's transphobic because I don't wish to, and I don't fall into the normal genders that you wish to, that you wish to put upon us. All right, you don't want to do it? Then we're going to misgender you. Oh, just a beautiful liberal circular firing squad. Just wonderful.
Yeah, it will be interesting to learn, see where that goes. Matt Lee's not done. He wants an answer. Yeah. And I wonder how many other departments, how many other government departments.
We did that story that said one of the worst things you can do if you're looking for a new job, because you see it on LinkedIn all the time, is put pronouns there. Because they look and they go, nope, sorry, woke, you're going to cause a problem.
Right.
And that's just the reality of it. That was a story that we read on the air saying,
and
don't do that. And I see it on LinkedIn. Quite, almost all young people.
Well, and if you put that there, but you don't really display, on your profile or whatever, or if you post your resume, a lot of people put their resume on LinkedIn. But if you put that on display, right? But that's all you put on display, a potential woke employer will look and say, well, they didn't do enough. They're not really woke. They just put that there to try and get my attention. Right? You're not going to win.
Right.
The point is, you're not going to win. You never do. It's not a win. All these corporations that are making these choices, you would think that Target would have learned in the whole bathroom thing. And now, they're putting out all of the LGBTQ clothing and apparel for children, which is fine. Go ahead and do that. But understand that people will make a decision based solely on that kind of move. Now, it may not be the Bud Light debacle. It may actually, who knows? With Target, it may increase their sales.
What was the new one, the bathing suit one?
Was that Reebok?
Was that Adidas?
Or Adidas? Yeah.
Was it?
I have to go back. I'll have to go back and look. But yeah, one of the sports apparel companies in their ad has a transgender male to female
Adidas,
okay, yeah. And has a man wearing a woman's one piece in the one picture. I didn't see any other pictures. There was one or two pictures, and he's wearing a one piece, and they're shutting out. Here's a question, because the complaint is, well, you're shutting out women.
Right.
Now, keep in mind, in Hollywood, well, wait a minute. If you're not actually that, you shouldn't be portraying that.
Right. Why isn't that gender appropriation?
Right.
Sexual appropriation.
Right.
This is what's so fun about the liberal circular firing squad.
Mm-hmm.
All the arguments we're making aren't our arguments. They're liberal arguments that have been made and then updated where people, well, I didn't get a memo on that. Well,
right.
I don't agree with that.
Right.
And that's the whole thing of, the whole insane liberal transgender activist movement and their misogyny against women. That's the whole, because that's, you think about, that's where the huge liberal circular firing squad is going on, where women are being shut out and men are dictating what the definition of a woman is.
Well, here's the thing. I think now, soon, very soon, gender reveal parties, for couples that are about to have a child,
I thought the same thing.
It will be other people showing up to tell you what the baby's gender is going to be.
Well, there's a huge, how dare you decide what the gender is?
That's it.
And right now, there's a huge controversy on the left.
So from then on, then it's like, okay, you don't decide. We're going to decide as a group. They're already shutting the parents out. They don't want parents to have the authority. So you don't get to tell that. We'll tell that child. We'll tell you what the child is.
Yeah, Disney is advocating teaching sexualized content to fetuses.
Right.
866-90 Red Eye.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. He's Eric Harley. So, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson says it's wicked and unconscionable for Texas to bus thousands of border crossers and illegal immigrants to the sanctuary city.
Huh. Well, the question for the new mayor would be, what does sanctuary city mean, and how dare you?
And let me ask this. Why is it, can any liberal explain this to us? We would like an explanation. Why is it wicked and unconscionable for the governors of whether it's Texas, whether it's Florida, to say, would you like to go to Chicago? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, here is a ticket to go to Chicago where you wish to go. Why is that wicked and unconscionable, yet the policy of the federal government that is causing the mass migration is not wicked and unconscionable? Why is it not wicked and unconscionable for the federal government to open up the border to allow these migrants into South Texas? Why is it only wicked and unconscionable for what the governor of Texas is doing? Can anybody explain that one? Can Mayor Johnson explain that one?
Well, and also the left for years. You complain about you're a conservative. You complain about the southern border because you're a racist. You don't want people of other nations coming here. If you're for protecting the border, you're a white nationalist. And you just don't want them here because you're racist.
Right.
Well, Mr. Mayor, are you racist?
Yeah.
Why aren't you welcoming these people from all over the world? Because remember, we're a melting pot.
But he's trying to have
this
it both ways.
This is how the country was built.
He's trying to have it both ways. We're a welcoming city, but this is too much.
Yeah.
You
We don't have the money.
You can't have it both ways.
Uh-huh.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So I found this on Twitter yesterday from WGRZ-TV in Buffalo, New York.
Okay.
And this is concerning the migrants in New York City, where the mayor said we're going to send them to other counties, and the counties have said no. Well, these are specific counties, and this came out yesterday as Niagara, Wyoming, and Orleans County leaders issue emergency orders to prevent efforts to bus asylum seekers from New York City. Niagara County Sheriff, by the way, that's where I began my talk radio career. Niagara County is where Niagara Falls is. It's just north of Erie County, which is where Buffalo is, and the Buffalo suburbs, most of them in Erie County. Niagara County just north of them. It includes Niagara Falls and Lockport and Pendleton, New York. The Niagara County Sheriff warns of $2,000 fines per individual for any hotels which would seek to make arrangements to accept migrants from New York City. Wow. Now, I don't know what law allows him to do that.
Yeah, that's my first question.
That was my first question. What law allows you? Is there a law that allows you to do that?
Under what authority?
Right.
But then trying to go through all the possibilities, the question would be, all right, can they issue like an anticipated emergency ruling? Because if they've been led to believe that they're going to be overwhelmed in that county, then they could act. That would be something where they could say, okay, what do we have within our power in order to prevent this or work against it?
I just found it. They've issued state of emergencies.
There you go. Okay.
Western New York counties issue state of emergencies.
Yeah.
Niagara County joined other New York counties that have issued state of emergencies anticipating an influx of migrants seeking asylum. So this is under is this under New York COVID law? I had to say
Right.
You never know. Niagara County issued a state of emergency saying it lacks the resources and housing needed to accommodate the growing number of immigrants pouring in from New York City.
Yeah.
New York City decided it would be a sanctuary city and welcome those who entered the country illegally. And now that this ill-conceived policy has produced the predictable results, it appears state and city officials are looking to upstate counties to bail them out, said Niagara County Legislative Majority Leader Randy Brandt to WGRZ TV. The county issued a press release in which Brandt said, so it's not just the sheriff making it, it's
county officials.
Now the county officials. The county issued a press release in which Brandt said, we are not without compassion, but we simply lack the resources to do it. Niagara County joined Western New York's Orleans, Genesee, Wyoming, Chautauqua, and Cattaraugus counties, which have declared an emergency over the potential influx of asylum seekers who have pushed New York City's emergency shelters to capacity. Various other counties around the state have done so as well. Chautauqua County Executive Paul Wendell told the TV station previously that 80 people, mostly families from Columbia, have been housed in Jamestown since birthplace of Lucille Ball, since November through social services agencies. As he's phrased it, there's a growing concern in New York State that these failed policies are now going to be borne by the rest of us, and we're pushing back.
Well, you look at it and, all right, because let's imagine that New York City or took these counties to court. There was a lawsuit. Well, these counties can easily lay out for the court that the city of New York created this policy. They have that policy, so if they don't have the resources to accommodate, then that's on them. We don't have this policy for a reason because we knew from the beginning we don't have the resources to accommodate.
Right.
Now, the question would be, all right, because it's going to be a fine based on New York City paying for the rooms, right? Is that what was any rooms paid for by the city of New York?
I guess that's how it would go. Yes. Yeah.
Because the resources don't stop there. Housing is not the only resource.
Right. Okay. So here it is. Niagara County Sheriff said his office would enforce a $2,000 per immigrant per day fine for any hotel owner who enters into a contract with New York City or New York State. So both New York City or New York State.
Too. Okay.
Sheriff Filicetti said he is not aware of any local hotel operators actually accepting any contract offers from New York City, which he says he learned pledged to provide up to 4 months of lodging costs. That's what New York City has said they would do. So the Niagara County Sheriff said this is really more of a preemptive move by the county legislature. So this came from the legislature, which realizes there could be costs for county taxpayers. We are not interested in turning hotel owners into criminals, but the emergency order is clear, and we will enforce it. The Niagara County Legislature declaration says the county strives to be a welcoming community and recognizes the contributions of lawful migrants to the county's development. He said, but unrestricted, unlawful migration poses a grave risk to the social, health, and emergency services resources of the county. By the way, I'm taking back to my beginnings of talk radio by talking about the Niagara County Legislature, because when I
was going to say, you were just rambling off the names of those counties, like you're fluent. in the names of those counties.
But it's like it brought me back to my original days of when I didn't want to be a talk show host, and the owner of at the time of WJJL in Niagara Falls couldn't find a talk show host, and this was in the late '80s as we were transitioning. Everybody was trying to figure out how to transition from news to talk. I remember that in Buffalo, WBEN, where I worked also at WBEN Radio for 3 years in the mid-'90s, I remember they took Rush, but only 1 hour. And I remember when Rush was offered, to radio stations and when he first syndicated, and I went to my owner and said, come on, we got to get this guy, because if we don't get him, the other station will get him. Be a great coup. We probably would have lost him to a bigger station, but it's like, and she just wouldn't do it. And she just goes, I don't know if we can do this. And I'm like, he's not that radical. I don't know, because there was a buzz at that point. And so she wouldn't do it. But WBEN only had him on for an hour. He had a 3-hour show, and he was on an hour for a while. They were afraid, what would the reaction be? And the the initial reaction, now, again, it wasn't maybe the listener, but the initial reaction of leftist groups was, insanity.
Yeah.
At that point, and my owner didn't want anything of it. But then it would have been a year later, because that would have been '88 when he was syndicated. A year later, where she made me a talk show host. I didn't make me a talk show host. I had no interest in doing it. None. Zero. I hated it for probably 3 or 4 years. And then when people started offering me more money to do that, then it sort of became, well, maybe this could be do I really want to be 40 years old and saying, here's the latest Madonna hit? I don't think I sounded like that, but I wanted to sound like a music DJ.
Well, not only that, but you're likely, if you stay long enough, to end up on the morning show, where not only do you have to play the music, you got to talk about Madonna for 20, 30 minutes at a time,
or
when she's in the news.
I guess it'd be Lady Gaga now, or more.
Well, no. I mean, it depends on what surgery Madonna has today. Did you see the Muppet on the awards show? It was cool to see the Muppets again. No, that was Madonna. What?
That meme was out there. So Niagara County has said, no, we're just not going to, we're not going to do it. And the Niagara County Social Services Commissioner said, I simply cannot fathom how we could possibly address such a large influx of individuals in need of shelter when we know for a fact that our partner agencies lack the capacity to address our current homeless population. Yeah. And so these counties have just said no.
Well, and because if you look at the county legislators here, they're also looking beyond the whole 4-month thing. Anybody believe that it's only going to be 4 months?
Well, here's the other thing, too. I mean, it's when you look at it, I understand why Niagara County put the fine. The other counties may have not, but those other counties are very rural. So you don't have the number of hotel rooms. Niagara Falls, it's a tourist city. And I'm sure they went, whoa. You're talking about we're going into summer and you're going to fill all of our hotel rooms?
Quite possibly, right. This is, I mean, if you think about it, next weekend would be, or coming up Memorial Day weekend.
It starts right now.
This is, this is and the bookings.
Yeah.
Well, there's the question too. How long does the state or city believe they can? Because they say 4 months. But then what? You allocate more money later, or you just end it, and all of a sudden everybody's on the street.
Well, wait a minute. Tourism Niagara Falls. Remember, if anybody's paying attention to the PGA Championship at Oak Hill in Rochester, I mean, it was they had frost yesterday, and that was like people had warned the PGA. No, you really don't. I made the mistake. I remember one time where I had 2 weeks vacation. I would take one in July and one at Christmas. And so then I got another week, and I said, I'll take one in May. I can split it up. And I went back to Buffalo in May. tried to play golf. It was in the 40s. It was, it's like you never know what you're going to get in May. And so really it'll start next week.
Mm-hmm.
Tour season starts really after Memorial Day. People from all over the world will come to Niagara Falls. And so you've got 4 months. All right, so June, July, August, September. That's the tour season.
Yeah, lock it in for the entire tour season. And take them out of New York City.
Yeah, and so I understand when Niagara County did that. And so the other counties may have not put the fines in yet, but they don't have the hotel room space. It just doesn't exist.
Right.
In Niagara Falls, you probably could find a couple of thousand hotel rooms.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be interesting. Now, Erie County hasn't said anything. Erie County is where Buffalo is.
Right.
Even though Erie County legislature, Erie County itself, maybe the suburbs are more conservative. I don't know. I haven't seen a reaction of Erie County yet. But, yeah, wow.
Crazy.
Yep. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Really interesting how this whole thing at the border has gone from what's going on at the border to what's going on in New York, what's going on in Chicago, what's going on. You saw that Abbott now is apparently planning on sending, more migrants who are willing to go to different cities like Denver.
Yeah.
Like that happened again apparently yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what they're going to continue to do. And the federal government, the other thing we need to realize, too, is the federal government is still sending people all over the country, too.
Right.
And so you think it works for Brandon Johnson in Chicago to say, oh, it's Texas, it's all their fault, it's our governor's fault. Does anybody really buy that?
I wonder how far it resonates locally.
Yeah. Because everybody knows it's the Biden administration's policy which is causing this.
Right. And, it's the only thing he can do. It's the only thing he can say. But I don't think it goes anywhere. I don't think it goes far. And ultimately, look, because on the news you're seeing, everything that's going on the border. Everybody's well aware of it all over the nation. So when buses show up in your town, nobody's shocked about it. They know the border's being overrun. This is a Biden problem, not just a Texas or Florida or Arizona problem.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the entire world, we are Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. He's Eric Harley. All right, so I'm looking here.
Yeah.
DeSantis next week.
Yeah.
You've got DeSantis next week. You have very close Senator Tim Scott going to announce. Mike Pence.
DeSantis Scott. Has a nice ring to it.
Might be a possibility. CBS News has learned that North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum is nearing his decision to launch for the Republicans.
Yeah.
So I would just love to be in their meetings as they're deciding, why are you going to run? What can you offer? What can you offer? What is your spin going to be? And I'm not saying that in a negative. That's not a negative connotation by using the word spin.
Right.
But it's, what are the arguments that you're going to use that's going to set you apart from a Trump or a DeSantis? Because that's really the question, right?
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
What sets you apart that makes Republicans right now that are very, very concerned about winning?
Yeah. Do you have a, if you come out with like a 3 or 4 or 5 point agenda, these are the items I really want to tackle. Now, the issues are going to be the same. If they're conservative, they're going to share the issues with the top candidates. But, for example, we go back to what was momentarily, it caught fire in a good way, the Herman Cain 999 plan. And now we picked it apart because, all right, everybody, through all the question, it was like, okay, but you can't, there can't be two ways of taxing and the whole thing. We like the idea, but in terms of how you would implement that.
Right. We were severely criticized for going after him on it, but we have said no Republican should ever offer another path to taxation while keeping the old one.
Exactly. You have to end one
right
in order to start the new one. They cannot overlap at all. But it brought conversation, and it needed work. But, I mean, it was, again, that was the kind of thing that would stand up. With Trump in 2016, it was about the border. It was, and, the issue of the border was nothing new.
The border and the economy.
Yes, and bring back the economy.
Right.
Which, if you think about it, I mean, the timing on both, the economy is not a new issue, and the border was not a new issue. But after 8 years of Obama and the economy just kind of trolling along the bottom, and with the whole recession of 2009, that really just kind of had us, after that recession, again, not seeing the growth that we had the potential to see because of so much government regulation. That was, again, that was something that was going to certainly catch people's minds. But, I mean, I don't know. Beyond DeSantis and Trump, I mean, that's going to be where the media focus is. You're really going to have to stand out if you want to make some noise.
I think there's in politics there are times when the strong but steady leadership, leading through I guess talk softly but carry a big stick, which has actually been used.
Yeah.
Before works. Mm-hmm. There are other times that it doesn't. In politics, I don't believe, I could be wrong. Excuse me, I could be because you don't know until an election is over.
Mm-hmm.
But this seems to be, to me, when you look at Trump, there's excitement.
Yeah.
When you look at DeSantis, there's excitement. You know why Trump is running. You know why DeSantis is running as to what they, say that they will bring. You look at Mike Pence, even though he has been more vocal lately, I cannot tell you why I would rather vote for Mike Pence.
Right.
And now the left will tell me why I should vote for Mike Pence, but Senator Tim Scott, I cannot tell you why at this time in history I would vote for him to be president of the United States when you have a Trump or DeSantis. And you look at the Republican Party in the context of being the Republican Party. Now, I see him as a future vice president and maybe a president. I'm just saying right now, no. The time is different right now. It could change by next year. Let's say, hypothetically, Trump is indicted a couple more times and he decides he's not going to run. There's an opening then at that point.
No, it blows the whole thing wide open, I think.
It blows everything completely wide open. And so at that point, knowing if he was campaigning, Tim Scott or a Pence, people might say, okay, that's the person.
Okay.
I still don't think so if they were going up against DeSantis. I think DeSantis is I think he's too strong.
It's interesting you say that because I don't remember what I read on Pence the other day. I think it was something on his, the campaign kind of shaping together. Things are looking more and more like he will announce, at some point. And then I'm thinking, okay, is the play, the tortoise and the hare? That you look for, that going in, really your only opening is if Trump at some point decides to bow out and is no longer running, and you believe at that point you've got a much better shot going up against a DeSantis in that way, because it's just at that point, then you become the target because, well, you were part of the Trump administration, and that's the way, the narrative will be shaped from any opposition within the party or outside the party. But that's, I was thinking of it. I thought, okay, do you look to say, we'll kind of cruise this way? If you think about the way the 2008 GOP primary shaped up, that John McCain was not hardcore conservative, but he kind of cruised his way through. Now, name recognition, but he kind of cruised his way through, and then there was the fallout of, everybody else, and then all of a sudden he's the nominee running against Obama. Mitt Romney in the same way in 2012. I mean, again, one of the we had a conversation with the late Andrew Breitbart just weeks before he passed and I asked him the question, why should conservatives like us vote for someone, in the center like a Mitt Romney? And his answer was, well, SCOTUS. And so he ended up being the nominee in 2012. Look, we pointed out how on the issues, Trump is mainstream.
Yeah.
You could consider him moderate on the issues.
Yeah, there's nothing radical about him on the issues at all.
So there's already that, and the question would be, all right, but without Trump, again, just imagining for the moment that if Trump decides not to run at some point, for whatever reason, he just decides not to run and he steps down, then the cult of personality aspect of it takes a whole different shape.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, I know I believe in our analysis, for example, Pence could be a great president.
Maybe.
Tim Scott could be a great president.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the point we're making. And we're not making the point, that for example, that a DeSantis would be more conservative than a Mike Pence. That would still to be seen on it. But his record in Florida so far, you'd look at the majority of it and go, no, that's really good. When you look at, looking at all the candidates, Ramaswamy, for example, brings a lot of excitement because he's talking ideology. I sort of view Ramaswamy, and this is unfair to do because it's not, because he's not the same at all as him, but I view Ramaswamy as sort of like a Ron Paul. Very ideological in promoting that.
Yeah.
And you love listening to him talk, but he's not going
Definitely has a future.
Definitely has a future. Now, it's different because Ron Paul was older at the time than Ramaswamy, but I view him just from the lens of he is somebody out there who isn't a major candidate, may not be a major candidate for a while, may not want to stay in politics for a while, but I view him as the same as a Ron Paul, who Ron Paul was very ideological in his libertarianism that he promoted and had an extremely loyal cult audience, even if they didn't understand what Ron Paul was about. And we go back, that was the whole point on trade, where this went on for a couple of years. It really did. It was amazing because people would sit there and go, I want to vote for Ron Paul. Why? Because he doesn't believe in free trade. He get rid of NAFTA. And we went, wow, you have no idea what Ron Paul's position is. These people would argue with us. I mean, this went on for years, where people would say, no. Ron Paul doesn't want any type of trade agreement. Ron Paul believes if you have a company in Illinois, you should be able to do business with whomever you want.
Unregulated free trade.
Unregulated free trade. And it was amazing the number of people that supported Ron Paul that thought it was a complete opposite. And
it was on his website. You can see it.
And we had to direct people, go and look, and then they were angry at us.
Right.
Well, I didn't know that before. Well, don't be angry at us. We're just simply telling you where he stands. And man, we got destroyed for that from Ron Paul people until they finally realized, oh, you guys are right. It's like, no, we decided to make up this big lie about Ron Paul.
Right.
Just to tick
you off. Like
we're
not going to get caught on it immediately, right?
Yeah, we're not Democrats. We don't do that.
Well, what's interesting, because you talk about, you mentioned Mike Pence, might be could make a good president, might make it. We as conservatives, we say, look, we want you there and we want you to adhere to your conservative values, George W. Bush, and, not abandon them, especially in a time of crisis, emergency, George W. Bush. Those are the times when you adhere to those values, and it's in part why you have those values, because they worked best in every situation. But you think about a Governor DeSantis. All right, built a consensus in a state. Not easy to do in a state like Florida, but it is easier than building a national consensus. So, and we've talked about this before. There will be missteps. We go back to, Mitt Romney. He brought Paul Ryan in for conservative street cred at the time. That's how things can change. And then all of a sudden, fast forward years later, Paul Ryan is Speaker of the House and conservatives are going. So, with that, the judgment is ever evolving. The measuring stick is also evolving.
Right. Well,
but the thing is that in the campaign, it will change things dramatically if at some point Trump decides he's no longer going to run.
Yeah, it would change dramatically. But looking at the other candidate, for example, Nikki Haley, she's just running a bad campaign.
It's not. She's tripping herself up unnecessarily, or demonstrating more and more what the concerns that people have had with her.
Yeah, and so I'm not surprised by it because I didn't know where she was going to head. I will say this: the one thing we congratulate her on is her, her announcement was the way you run an announcement.
Yeah,
there are a ton of people there, and they were excited and cheering and everything else. But the next question is, okay, what do you bring to the table in this, particular election? So then you've got CBS News learning that North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum is nearing a decision to launch, they call a dark horse bid for the White House. That's because he has no name recognition at all. None. None. Ramaswamy has a lot more name recognition with Republicans. So what I find fascinating about this is you have two extremely strong candidates for the Republicans. You've got Trump and you've got DeSantis. And Trump has still probably anywhere between 40 and 60% very loyal Republicans behind him. And I say 40 to 60 because there are people that are very loyal to him that if he's a choice would vote for him. But DeSantis is an option for them.
Yeah.
In the primary.
Right.
Is still an option that's sitting out there. The rest, as we know, it just isn't it just isn't there. I saw the New Hampshire. I think Sununu in New Hampshire is at 17%. It's like, okay, 17%, and you're Sununu in New Hampshire, and that's all you're pulling. Well, again, it's going to be fascinating because I'm really interested that after DeSantis runs, how he is going to go after Trump.
Yeah.
How is he going to go after him? Now, it was reported yesterday that he told donors that there's only 3 viable candidates, and those candidates are Trump, Biden, and me, and only 2 of those candidates can win, Biden and me. Trump can't win. And so that's the message that he put out to donors, which donors want that is probably his correct message to the donors, because the donors are saying
Ron DeSantis,
right?
That's what you say.
Right, that's what you say. That's what you, as being someone who currently is the underdog in the primary. That's the only thing that you can say is he can't win against Biden. I can. Don't waste your money.
Right.
But how will he attack him? Oh, and it's going to happen. And by the time we get now, Trump may not participate in the primary debates.
Yeah.
And if that happens, expect most of the candidates to say he's afraid.
If you're Ron, well, I would say if you're any of the other candidates, you have to say that.
Right. He's afraid to debate. Yep. He knows he's not strong on the issues. He knows it now. But the other problem for the primaries, and I don't know, they haven't decided on who's going to do the second primary, have
right.
they? Debate.
Right.
Because the problem is, you saw it on CNN. If there's anybody from the major networks, if you don't have, and the rules aren't set down that we wish to talk the issues and not January 6th and stolen elections, then every single debate will turn into a stolen election debate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE. The Bonus Show.
It's Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. He's Eric Harley. So, yesterday, Republican Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said he is only one of 3 credible options in contention for the White House in 2024. He said that former President Trump's chances of winning were not great, according to a report in the New York Times.
All right.
He said, quote, "You have basically 3 people at this point that are credible in this whole thing," DeSantis reportedly told donors on a call organized by Never Back Down, the super PAC supporting him, Biden, Trump, and me. And I think of those 3, 2 have a chance of getting elected president, Biden and me, based on all the data in the swing states, which is not great for the former president and probably insurmountable because people aren't going to change their view of him, end of quote, he said. Now, when you look at it, we've stated that that is the challenge that Trump would have. Can Trump get more votes than he got in 2020? Can he expand his base? Will independents and Democrats cross the line for him to the point where he could beat Biden or whoever the Democratic candidate is? Can he get more votes? And when, you've had, I forgot who pointed it out a couple of weeks ago by saying the majority of people voting in the election will not be Republican, which is always true.
Right.
Can he win if the majority is not? And that's a great question. It's a great question. You look and say, can he win the primary? Yeah. Big question is, can he win the general election? And when we see, and you saw it on CNN, he didn't try to say, look, I'm not going to talk about, January 6th. We've moved on from that point. I want to talk about the things that I did and what they're not doing and why you should vote for me because here's the things that I believe. Nope, he went right into it. He wants to argue and he wants to debate 2020 over again. That's a problem because the American public doesn't want to hear that. Republicans might. Trump supporters might.
I was going to say, this is what the only thing you're doing there is playing to your very loyal base.
Right. They're already there with you.
And the idea, especially if you're going on CNN, is to reach out and bring people in. You've got to convince people, start convincing people at this point that you are the option and that Joe Biden is no option. And, those are the things that are required. It is a very easy, simple equation. You need to convince a great number of people in the center and even a few Democrats, if not the entire center, to come your way.
Now, the difference in this is the fact that Biden could completely evaporate in that time. That's the wild card. That's actually the great unknown.
Well, based on the way it's going,
right? Trump to me is not in the general election. I mean, or even in the primary. There's nothing. He has faced so much that the accusations itself mean nothing anymore. And when you look at it, for example, with Durham's report, you realize Democrats will never accept it, but independents realize Donald Trump was set up by the Hillary campaign. All the dirty tricks, all the accusations that that Trump was a traitor, all that was a lie created by the Hillary campaign and continued by the Democratic Party. So I don't believe the impeachments don't matter. That accusation doesn't matter. Indictments down the road could matter.
Yeah, the current indictment in New York, not so much.
Not that one. No, that had no effect.
But the other ones, you're right. And we'll see where they go and what they have. But look, in terms of talking about the election, and the Durham report spells it out, and you hit on something. You may not convince many Democrats of that, but in the center, the Durham report is really what he needed on that issue, on talking about rigged elections. It kicked the door open and demonstrated, if you had any questions, for those of us who have been following along, about the Russian hoax. You've been following too. And that's one thing you likely don't need to be convinced of. But even, I would say, with some of them, maybe you needed to be reminded of it. in a package like a report, 305 pages, as the media, especially the critical thinkers in the media, and there are a few, go through it and dissect it. It demonstrates very clearly how that all went down. Then you add to it the whole laptop thing and how that was handled with the FBI and social media, and shutting the media, the New York Post story down. The New York Post was breaking that story and had that exclusive. And, of course, they had to be banned from social media. You couple all that together, and he can sit and talk all day about how the election is rigged, and people in the center will listen.
No, I don't agree with that.
Oh, I think so.
I don't. I think people are settled whether they would vote for Trump or not, and I don't think that's going to change.
Well, no, I'm not saying they would vote for him.
Right.
I'm saying that he can talk about it and have people listen that wouldn't probably have listened before the report.
Yeah. My point is, will it make a difference in the election? It might in the primary. I don't believe it will in the general.
Well, the question is, does it do the damage? And this is what we were getting at, is that before, if you didn't have it spelled out in that report, I think there are a number of people that were just getting tired, and they still may be tired, of hearing the election is rigged, but they're also saying to themselves, well, he's not wrong.
But there's a difference. He's not saying rigged. He was saying fraud again. He's basically saying the fraud and the stolen election.
Well,
he did use rigged.
If you say stolen, if you say
that, and that's
fraud,
right.
Fraud is one you could split. Fraud is one you could split because it could be, you can put fraud out there as the umbrella.
There comes a point when people wish to look to the future.
Because I do think it's fraudulent in nature for the FBI to be going to social media and saying, hey, we've got this intel that's going to be coming out, and we need you to control that.
But that's not election fraud.
No, it's not.
Right.
But I'm talking about the populist mentality of people, how they think.
I know.
And I could see them saying, well, yeah, that's fraudulent. You shouldn't do that.
I think that tends to make people that support Trump even more loyal to him, which can help in the primary. I don't see that helping in the general. I don't. I think
it changes it to the extent that he's not going to be dismissed for that particular topic.
Again, we all observe things differently. I think, but when I look at it, just if I observe it, the entirety of it all, I think that his response, and this has got nothing to do with the Democrats' accusations that were wrong, that it was an insurrection or anything like that, but I believe his first response that day, that first statement that came out, doomed him. At that point,
no. When you bring January 6th into it, it does change it. If you're going to sit and engage on January 6th, right. No doubt.
His first statement there, I think, was when independents made their decision.
Well, there was a reason he made a second statement.
Exactly, right.
And so if you engage in that, then the question is, all right, how much weight do you put in that one day? For people in the center, which is what's required.
I'm not saying that that's the entirety of it. I'm saying that was where they said, okay, enough is enough.
Yeah, no, we're not talking about, the entirety of anything, but the question is what works in his favor, what doesn't work in his favor if he stays in the entire
And again,
election.
you can look at it because we all focus on different things and different happenings there. That's just in my impressions where that was when I saw independents go, I just can't vote for the guy.
Right.
After that first statement came out.
Well,
even though the second statement was the correct statement to make, the fact that he had to make two statements on that, I still hear from independents today on that. People that are, say, I'm an independent, I just couldn't do it because of that first statement. I go, well, he corrected in the second statement. He goes, the fact that it took two statements for him, to say that it, correctly, he goes, is a problem with me. That was the final straw.
Well, as we were talking about the other day, the night that the report came out, the report changes the tone of everything because it puts everything in a neat little package and the conversation changes. Now, the question is, do you live in that, does that stay in your mind? And it varies from voter to voter.
Mm-hmm.
Does that stay in your mind? Also, because of his willingness to engage, the media would take that and say, all right, look, you got to stay away from the Russian hoax thing. Focus on January 6th, which is something they were going to do anyway. So in any debate setting or any interview setting or any back and forth on social media, it's going to be all about January 6th. So if he engages on January 6th, that's not going to favor him at all. January 6th is the spoiler. That is what is going to definitely change things if he engages, and there's no doubt, I don't have any doubt that he would.
Now, stating that, there's even a bigger wild card for Biden, because Democrats have basically, put up the thing that, nothing touches Biden at all in the whole influence peddling.
Right.
If in the next year they have that flow chart that shows the money got to Biden at that point, and even if not, the fact that we now know in sworn testimony that he knew about all of it and the goal was to enrich his family, that to me is more damaging than, and this is to me, it may not be to other people, that to me is more damaging than anything Trump has ever done by a long margin.
Well, you couple that with the border effect, and it's happening in big blue cities now, and they see it. And
inflation.
Look, they're seeing all of this, and they're having to. Everybody's having trouble making ends meet. Things are getting much more expensive, by the second, and then and crime is on the rise. I mean, that throws it up into toss-up territory. From this view here in May of 23, because we don't know how bad it will be.
May the 19th at 3:48 a.m. Central.
By the time you get, I don't know how bad it will be Monday.
Yeah, but it's going to be fascinating. I mean, it's going to be fascinating to see how all these candidates now, because once DeSantis announces, and that means in the next month, you're going to have, if Pence is in, and then Tim Scott is in. Mm-hmm. And if the governor of North Dakota decides to go in, somebody's going to start attacking Trump.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not going to be the softball kind of attacks we've seen so far or just the ignoring. You have to, in politics, go after the person who's got the big lead. You have to. And it will be fascinating
and quite
to see.
Often, the people that are lower in the rankings in the polls make the bigger attacks to gain the noise, to gain the attention.
And that we said that's a problem Nikki Haley has. Will she attack Trump? Mm-hmm. Because she's not offering anything new.
Right.
So how are you going to differentiate between Trump? And that's what you have to do. And unless they all are going to fight between themselves and leave Trump out of it.
Right.
866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
Red Eye Radio. He's Eric. I'm Gary. Yeah, so it would be interesting to see what happens next week. And again, it's pure speculation I'll say it on my part. You as to what might happen and what the strengths and weaknesses. I still think we're pretty close on what the strength and weaknesses and possible strategy would be, and also the bumps that each candidate actually has.
The fundraising after DeSantis announces will tell a story.
Yeah.
And by the time we get to that first debate in August, that picture is going to be shaping up with the money flow.
And I really wonder is what the tone of DeSantis will be, because Trump is unlike any other candidate to go up against.
Right.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.